Welcome to the comeback season, where we have real conversations about fueling your body, rebuilding strength, and stepping back into the life you were meant to live. Whether you've been caring for kids, aging parents, or just lost sight of your own needs, we see you. And this is your season to rise. Hello, my name is Nicole McLeod with Healthy Mind, Healthy Body. I'm a mindset and fitness coach and the author of I Started on a Tuesday. I know what it feels like to lose yourself in the chaos and still hold on to the hope that something better is coming.
And I'm Christy Kelsey from Christy Counts Macros, nutrition and mindset coach and food freedom advocate. I've worked with lots of women who felt stuck, restricted, and unsure where to even begin. Together, we're bringing you honest conversations, healing truths, and real strategies to help you rise again, physically, mentally, and emotionally, whether you've hit rock bottom or you're just tired of putting yourself last. This space is for you because this is your comeback season and it starts right now.
Welcome back to the comeback season. Before we get into today's episode, I wanted to give you a quick heads up so everything makes more sense when you listen. Yesterday, I sat down with Tracy from Interstate Hypnotherapy and we recorded what we thought would be a complete standalone episode. But after we finished, we both realized something really important was missing. Tracy actually never told her story. And without that context, so much of what she teaches about generational patterns, motherhood, and breaking cycles just doesn't land the same way as it could. So today we're back recording this short segment so you can hear the heart behind her work before you hear the episode we originally recorded. In a moment, I'm going to talk or walk Tracy through a few questions that give you a clear window into her journey, what generational patterns meant in her own life, how they showed up in motherhood, and the moment she knew something had to change, and how she began breaking that cycle. When this segment ends, the episode we recorded yesterday will play right after. So if it sounds like the intro suddenly restarts, don't worry, that's intentional. We just wanted you to have her story first and then the full conversation, exactly how it unfolded. All right, so let's dive right in. Tracy, welcome back. How are you?
Thank you for having me again.
Right?
Really nice to be here.
Well, you speak a lot about generational patterns and how they show up in motherhood. For someone hearing right now that term for the first time, what does it really mean?
Yes. Well, when I think of generational patterns, I think of it as the emotional stories that we inherit without ever really choosing them. Our past is not our fault, but it does shape our future. Especially as we walk through motherhood, we're not fully aware of these patterns and they're replaying every single day. And, these patterns in us, they form early, sometimes even before we're born. Like, for instance, my mom was overwhelmed. She was unsupported and she was carrying a lot of her own inner chaos. And that stress became the atmosphere I arrived into. I learned very young that that big emotions were unsafe because
Mhm.
in my home, my emotions meant yelling, hitting, and instability.
Mhm.
So I became the quiet one, the contained one, the good little girl who kept everything inside because that's what she did to survive. And the truth is, so many parents want peace, connection, and joy. They want a home that feels safe, but instead they're drowning in guilt and fear and reactivity. They're exhausted and their kids are melting down. Nothing seems to be working. And they're quietly wondering, what is wrong with me? And that's exactly how I felt. But here's the thing, it's usually not about discipline, it's about connection. And most kids act out because something inside of them doesn't feel safe, seen, or accepted. And
Mhm.
most moms are carrying around guilt and shame like it's a part of their identity. But it isn't about blame, it's about curiosity.
Mhm.
It's about noticing your patterns and understanding where they came from, and then giving yourself the grace to do it differently.
It's powerful. And I can tell you that many mothers are gonna connect to that. So how do
Mhm.
you think those early experiences show up once you become a mother yourself? Like how what was that moment where you're like realizing that those old patterns are shaping you today?
Yeah, I mean, and it happens without even realizing it. And I carried the same patterns that I grew up with right into my parenting. I told myself that I would be different. I would be different from what I experienced.
Mhm.
And externally, I was. I didn't lose control the way she did. But internally, I was completely disconnected from my emotions. I
Mhm.
bottled everything up. I tried to control every detail, right? So nothing would feel like chaos. I wanted to control it all. And I thought that's how I was protecting myself. I thought by being calm and composed, that would make me a good mom. But in reality, it just made me numb.
Yeah. I think a
Yeah.
lot of people forget that what we like to call control freaks are usually people that have been through a storm and still have a storm going on in their head. And the only way they can stay grounded is if they control what they can or what they feel they can. You know, true connection to your body, proprioception is understanding where your body ends and where the world begins. And if you don't have control in that, that's a really tough thing. What was
Mm.
there a moment that made you realize something needed to change? Like, what was your aha moment?
Yeah. Well, before I get there, I just wanted to give you a little background on how I got there.
Okay, let's do
Um,
that.
because, God is funny like that. He gave me a daughter that was fiery, emotional, beautiful. She's beautifully expressive little girl. And she triggered me constantly because her feelings reflected everything I had spent years burying. Her
Mhm.
big feelings woke up those old beliefs and those emotions. And those emotions were unsafe for me. And I tried to do it differently. I really did. I read all the parenting books. I went to counseling. I could see what I was doing, right? I knew the pattern, but I couldn't change the automatic response because awareness wasn't enough. It wasn't until I learned about hypnotherapy, and honestly, not until my kids were already teens. And that's when everything began to shift. And that's when I understood why I kept reacting that way and how to change it from the inside on the inside out. And that's exactly why I'm so passionate about helping moms now. I don't want anyone to feel as overwhelmed and as alone as I did.
Mhm.
Because here's the thing, when what's because this is what I've learned, I'm sorry, been going through all of this. When kids don't feel that deep emotional connection, they start to pull away. They hide in their rooms, they shut down, and they slowly stop coming to you. But when you build those emotional safety for them, then they that creates that foundation where when they're teens, they come to you instead of away from you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
And
think that's tough, and that's a tough one because it is very normal for teenagers to pull away from you. It's not a uncommon thing. But yeah, the um, I definitely had one teen that was closer and more receptive to connect than the other. There's no doubt about that. But that is definitely something to consider and take. It almost takes a bit of pressure off. I feel to think about it's not a disciplinary thing. It's not a it's a connection thing, and to have the mindset to connect with your kids. So
exactly. Hmm.
that aha moment then came out of that, obviously.
No, yeah. So here's where it really happens. That moment that made me realize that something needed to change. And I'll never forget that moment. It was when my daughter was older at this point. She was living on her own and she had just gone through a hard breakup. She was so broken. And my husband brought her home to be with us. And she was lying in her bed and she was in a full panic attack. And I lied beside her, finally just being present, not fixing, not shutting down, just with her. And she looked at me and she said, Mom, this is the first time that I feel like you really care, like you're
Ouch.
actually listening.
Yeah.
Yeah, those words, they just stopped my
I can
heart.
absolutely relate to that. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, because I thought that I had been loving her the way that she needed me.
Mhm.
But in that moment, I realized I had been parenting from disconnection.
That must make her feel better now too, to see that look on your face, to realize
Mm,
the sincerity that this whole time she's felt that you don't listen, but now she's able to step back and see the vulnerable part of you, because that look on your face must have been kind of
yeah,
impactful, I guess.
that was an opening, right?
Yeah,
An opening for us to communicate. And when she understood,
she received you in that moment. That's
oh yeah, like there was just this peace
mhm.
over her. It was just beautiful. Yeah.
It's hard, I guess, that must be relieving for them. Some kids may not believe their parents are human and make mistakes and are genuine when they're, I didn't mean to do that, daughter or son or whatever the situation is. But
Yeah.
that's powerful. So those moments are not to beat yourself up, but to grow out of. So what happened from there?
Yeah. I mean, that's when everything began to unravel. And that was the moment that everything we started to heal. And and I finally turned inward. I
Hmm.
learned how to regulate my nervous system. I learned how to feel again,
Yeah,
gently, safely, without fear. And then
yeah.
hypnosis helped me to access the subconscious parts of me that had been running the show. They've been running my reactions for decades. And
What a
as I
gift
did
for your
the
daughter
work,
to see that too. That's powerful that
right,
you did that. Yeah.
and I was I was a witness for them to see
Mhm.
how people can change. And the steps that we do, it doesn't mean that we have to be a perfect parent, but when they see us trying, it changes everything.
Mhm.
Because you're already at that point changing the generational patterns.
But kudos to your daughter too, to recognize that you're doing the work and give you grace too. Like what a beautiful relationship between the two of you, for you to be able to say, that wasn't my intention. I'm going to work. I'm doing all this inner work now. I'm trying. And for your daughter to be like, thank you, mom. That's pretty incredible.
Oh
You did a
yeah.
lot of things right then, mom, because there's a lot of kids that might not be able to see their parent as a human being. And I think that's a lot of issues between adult children and their parents, is the adult children can't see their parents as just as broken as they are, right? Like that's literally what it comes down to.
Yeah.
So
And
how
then
did
so yeah, I was going to say, so when we do the work, the whole family dynamic changes. So my
mm-hmm,
children changed too. My
mm-hmm,
daughter, she chose a loving, gentle guy to be her partner because that's what she began to believe that she deserved.
aw,
Now that said a lot for me.
mm-hmm,
Um, I saw that change in her. And they recently got married in Ireland, and somehow I was involved in every single piece of that experience, to dress fittings, to her bachelorette weekend doing yoga,
aw,
traveling Europe together after her wedding. She doesn't need me in the same way that she used to, but she
mm-hmm,
still wants me close. And to me, that's the real measure of healing,
yeah,
wanting to be with each other in the
yeah.
world without obligation, right?
Well, that's what it's all about. You don't ever want your kids to be with you out of obligation. You of course want, but no, I think for her, as a young adult that had the feelings and just went through a heartbreak, to have that moment, that's pretty magical.
Hmm.
So you began breaking the cycle, and
Yeah. And
the
even
just the ripple effects happens, right?
exactly, even with my son, we have a beautiful, easy relationship. He talks to me about his life. He feels very comfortable opening up and he's very natural. We cook together, we play golf together, and there's just this ease between us that I used to hope for, but never knew how to create.
Yeah.
I just want to say that it doesn't happen overnight, but
Mm-hmm.
it does happen. And
Mm-hmm.
every step is worth it. Every single step, every hard knock every day, trying to do better, to do different, to be aware of what we're doing each and every moment. It pays off. And I want every single mom that's struggling like I was to hear this, that, if I could do it, they can do it.
It's definitely not something that's easy, or simple actually in this case, but it does take time. But it is important that both parties, connect on that level, and that's really where that magic happens. So now your children today, if you think that they were to tell their side of the story with that transformation, what were the things you think that they did that helped support you and your relationship?
I think that for my daughter, she got the help that she needed.
Yeah.
Um, and with that, she also saw how I was how I was changing, and that everybody in the family, it just a sense of ease. There was more cooperation, less battles, right? Less struggles, um, more talking, that more connection,
Mhm.
doing things together instead of hiding out in your room,
Yeah,
those types of
that's a
things.
big one. That is a big one. You expect to
Yeah.
connect with parents. Well, you got to connect.
Yeah.
Got to see each other. Yeah. And what about your son? How did he react to all the inner work?
Yeah, well, because he rebelled, I was trying to control every aspect of his life, his health, um, and we just started having this distance, and finally I was uh, at that point where I was aware of what I was doing, and I was able to make that change. So again, there's one thing to be aware of, oh yeah, I see what's happening, but I don't
Mhm.
know what to do.
Mhm.
Um, but I was like, okay, this is his life. I need to have my hands off. And then we just became not friends, but like we had a different relationship. It was more of a calmer, more relaxed relationship. I wasn't on him about, taking your medication or what you're eating, or and kind of like just hands off. It's, at some point in life you got to let them, you have the hard knocks.
But
And
you still are
he,
concerned. Like we've talked about it, right? And it's still like there is balance. Like you're not encouraging mothers to just never care for your kid again or voice that. It's just how you do it.
and it's really depends on the age. At that point, my son was 18.
Oh, yeah. Okay, fair enough.
I mean, I was controlling his life up until then, and then it was like he's 18 years old, so I have to
Yeah.
at some point, come on,
Yeah.
take your hands off. And now it's very easy.
Hmm.
It's very comfortable, very relaxed relationship. And
That's
it's a
awesome.
respect thing too. I respect his decisions, and then he respects me. It's a very cooperative relationship.
But honestly, I've watched it. At our age, we know a lot of people. We know a lot of people with adult kids, our kids' age. We do life with as you grow up with your kids, and you see how other parents and families what they deal with and what happens. And there are some families that just can't connect for various reasons. But that disconnect of communication is really difficult. But it's so important for both parties, right? And I think that's such a special thing you did so well that and I want to kudos to your kids too, because there's a lot of kids in this world that may not see their parents as that and give them the grace that they need. So that's an incredible story, Tracy. Thank you so much for sharing that. And the exciting part now is when I stop this and the second part starts to play right away. And we're going to give everyone a little teaser. We did not mention this in the next episode, but we are going to have a part 2 here with Tracy so she can actually go over what she does and hopefully help someone learn how to regulate through the hard times. And actually, I'm going to let you explain that. How about that? Our secret.
What was that?
Our part 2, what we're going to provide in Jet, what we talked about before. I just want to give everybody
Yeah.
a little sneak peek of what we're going to do.
Well, I just want to make sure that everybody out there knows what's coming. And that is, um, it's just a story of hope, right? It's a story of that you're not broken, that you're not failing, that you're just running those old survival strategies that once kept you safe. And we're going to go through how to identify patterns that had kept you stuck, and different shifts that you can make in your life to have a more happy, joyful, loving, relationship with your children and have a great experience of motherhood. And we just want to raise secure kiddos and have joy while we're doing it, right?
That is so exciting. I'm excited for that episode. And my listeners, enjoy what you are about to hear because there is so much amazing conversations to be had. Thank you. Welcome back to the comeback season. I'm Nicole McLeod, and I am so excited for today's episode because today we're diving into something profoundly important: how what we inherit emotionally, mentally, our behavior, and how we inherit this from the generations before us shows up in our lives. It shows up in our relationships, our parenting, and how we show up for ourselves in this world. My guest today is Tracy, and she's from Interstate Hypnotherapy, someone who works deeply with individuals and parents to identify and break generational cycles so that the next chapter looks different. Tracy, thank you so much for being here. Why don't you take a moment and tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got on this journey?
Hi, thank you for having me. I am a coach, a hypno coach who blends subconscious rewiring with real life programming or parenting, I'm sorry, real life parenting wisdom to help moms heal and finally break those generational patterns that they've been carrying around for years. And before we get started today, I wanted to clear up a couple myths around hypnosis because I know that some people out there still picture someone quacking like a duck. So
Yes. I was one of them. Please
I was
do.
as well until I figured it out and knew better.
Yeah.
So hypnosis is not mind control. Okay. It's simply a focused, relaxed state where you can actually stay in charge of yourself the whole time. You can't get stuck in hypnosis and you come out naturally, like the same way that you would come out of a daydream, actually.
Hmm.
And most people don't realize this, but when you slip into that same brainwave state all the time throughout the day, like when you're driving and you suddenly are like, huh, I don't remember those last few miles.
The good old
Oh,
autopilot.
yeah, yeah. Or you get stuck in, the Netflix show, right? And you're
Mm-hmm.
watching the show and you just lose track of time. It's like, again, scrolling on your phone and everything around you just fades away.
Mm-hmm.
And moms are, we're basically living in that state on repeat. We're packing lunches while thinking about work, or we're answering our teenager while replaying yesterday's argument, right? Or we're acting on autopilot because our brain is juggling these 47 things that we have going on at once.
I think a
And
lot of people can relate to that.
yeah, yeah, it's the same like state. But hypnosis simply just helps you to shift out of that overwhelmed version of that state into a calmer, more intentional one so that when you're parenting from presence and not that pressure.
Thank you for opening with that. Actually, I wasn't expecting that, but I'm really glad you did because it's so important and it's so true. Because you know this about me. I was like, no, hypnotherapy. I'm a Christian. I can't do this. I don't want to do this. And I did have a different mindset. And to know now, it's more of a meditation state. It's more of a learning to tap into your own subconscious mind, where God put your answers, where you have the answers, right? And learning through that. So it's so true. Well, today we're going to talk about those generational struggles, what they really mean, and how they get passed down, how they're embedded in our subconscious mind, like I just said, and how they play out in our daily lives. Why family has a way of, why family has that way of really getting to us. Why do we get affected by family so much more than friends? So let's just start right out of the gates and define generational struggles, and more importantly, how they show up in our lives today.
Hmm. Very good question, right? So when I talk about generational struggles, I'm really talking about the emotional wounds, the beliefs, and the survival strategies that we absorb growing up. It's not the DNA, it's not written in our DNA,
Mm-hmm.
but it's the things written in our experiences. It's what we watched, it's what we felt, it's
Mm-hmm.
what we learned we had to do to feel safe, loved, and accepted in the world. So these patterns, they live in our subconscious and they get passed down very quietly from one generation to the next. No one means to be passing these down, by the way. They just
That's a big
continue.
one. Can I stop there? Because
Yeah.
there's a lot, and I have one included, that has this idea that their parents are these, have to be these perfect people, but really there's so many people that have this trauma passed down from all these other generations, and they're just trying to be a solid person and do the best they can too. So you must experience that a lot. Hey, there's a lot of people that beat themselves up when they learn this, but we shouldn't beat ourselves up, because the most important part is the awareness.
Exactly. There's a lot of guilt and shame wrapped
Yeah.
around this.
Mm-hmm.
And this cycle just continues on until someone becomes aware of them,
Yeah. And sorry, go.
No, I was just going to say how I explain this to my clients. I use the analogy of a tree. So just I explain it through the image of a tree. So I help people to see what's exactly happening on the inside. And I explain it like this. The trunk, if you can just picture the tree, the trunk is the emotions and the sensations that you feel in the moment. It's the tight chest, it's the heat in your face rising up through your neck, it's the knot in your throat or your stomach, right? And these are the signals that are coming up through the trunk. In the branches are your automatic reactions. But that's the snapping, the shutting down, the yelling before you even realize you're yelling. And the branches always respond to whatever moves up through the trunk. But the real story lives in the roots. The roots hold the beliefs that you formed as a child, the emotions you were never taught to feel, to process, the survival strategies that you carry to stay safe, and the nervous system patterns you absorbed long before you had words to describe it. And when moms say to me, I don't know why I keep doing this, I promised myself I'd be different. The answer is almost always in the root.
Wow. My friend, did you think of that, or did someone teach you that?
I came up with that because all in the creation of the ebook that I wrote and just the work that I've been doing. I'm a visual person, so I just devised this to help my clients to see it, because we're all different learners. And I think when you show somebody something visually, they can get it, like, oh, that's what's going on.
I'm going to use that a lot, because I too am doing a lot of neuroscience with my fitness. And my friend, that is a beautiful imagery of what's going on. Because the reality is, and this is what I'm going through with my clients too, that most of our behaviors and most of our personality traits are trauma responses, are things that we experienced in the past. And the cool part about this is that once you're aware, once you go, that's true. I can look at my grandfather, and I can look at my mother, and I can look at these people. And of course, I can see their struggles. And I know that I struggle with X, Y, and Z, but this is the why. And as soon as your brain computes the why, that's when you can start the transformation, in my opinion.
Exactly. And that's where the shame falls away too.
Yeah. Yes. And if you consider the fact that shame and guilt is the lowest possible energy, and the highest is love, if you're going to get out of anything and you want to change your life and you want to, work through the trauma, it's got to come from love. It is not going to come from shame and guilt. That's just the reality to that.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
So let's just stay on this point here a little bit longer with the generational struggles and the passing them down. So we understand now the root of that tree, and I'm going to forever have that vision in my head as well. So what's our starting point, like with those roots, when the awareness part, what's the thing we need to do when we first are aware that that's the issue?
Yeah, right. So, and just noticing that everything that the roots are holding, right? So when I work with moms, we start with pattern recognition. We look at the moments when the reaction is bigger than the situation, like when her son spills the milk for the fourth time this week, and she snaps instantly.
Yeah.
And that recognition is rarely about the milk, right? It's usually an echo, something old, something learned.
Yeah.
And here's the part most parents don't consider. The spills might not even be carelessness. Sometimes the child's nervous system is responding to the fear of being yelled at again.
Yep. It's a thing. I think that's the beauty of being a grandparent. It's this time around, I have a grandchild living in my home, and I just have a whole other perspective on things, right? Like all the little things that used to really get to me. Now, I was a child when I had kids, but nonetheless, those little things that used to get to me, I just kind of see them as cute now. Or, if the house is messy, well, the house is messy. There's little things around, that you change your perspective. But again, I feel the reason that grandparents can do that is because you've stepped out of your emotion and you're looking at it in from a different perspective, right? So moms, don't beat yourself up over spilt milk.
Exactly.
So
because
true.
in that moment, the child is learning all kinds of things and nothing to do with milk, by the way. They're learning how to rehearse anxiety. They're learning that mistakes aren't safe. They're learning that their worth might be tied to performance. And those beliefs, they follow them into adulthood.
Mm-hmm.
And when they become parents, their child's small mistakes feel like big threats.
Yep.
And they react intently. They expect perfection. Same root, different generation.
I personally believe.
Yeah.
Oh man, I agree with that, because those temper tantrums that children have, well, so do adults. We just tantrum on a different level. And, and we don't realize that, two tantrums simultaneously over something like the spilt milk it'll just catastrophize. And that's when the foundation of so much comes from, when, you're just this little person and, you have this big parent role, making a big deal out of it. Yeah, that could be hard on a little one for sure. And we've all done it, every single mom on planet Earth.
That no parent is perfect, and you don't want to be a perfect parent.
No.
It's not relatable.
That's powerful. That is so powerful that you just said that, because it's so true. Why do we beat ourselves up over that? Because it's always, look at the work you and I do as coaches. Everybody knows that people that relate to you are the ones that are going to work with you. Well, if you can't relate to someone, how do you connect with them on that level? I love that. Mm-hmm. So let's just break down some, when we talk about those generational struggles and, all the things that we go through with them, what do you really mean with that? And how do you help your clients see that they are experiencing might just be those roots that we were talking about? And then what's happening now to the nervous system? So why, and then what's happening to that nervous system when that takes root, literally.
Now, before I explain this, I just want to identify, before I identify, what was it, to identify the emotional inheritance that they're carrying?
Pretty much, yeah. And then the root of that, what do we do with that? Okay, so we know that it's important to identify and be aware and intentional with the awareness. So now that we've kind of been like, okay, this is the possibility. Now, what do I do with it? What's the next step?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. And before I explain how we identify someone's emotional inheritance, it helps to understand how the mind actually works, I think. So, we all have, I was taught in my training that we have two minds. That's what neuroscience or psychology will tell you. You have the conscious mind, that part of you that you're aware of, and the subconscious mind, which is kind of like the behind the scenes operating system. That's how I like to describe it. And it's silently just running in the background on autopilot. And the conscious mind is great for making decisions and setting goals, right? But it only controls about 5% of our daily behavior. The other 95%, our beliefs, our emotional reactions, our survival strategies, they all live in the subconscious.
That much? 95%?
Some will say 98, up to 98. Wow. But I want to be a little conservative here. And this is why so many parents say, I don't know what to do, but they say, I know what I want to do, but I just can't in the moment. I just don't know why I can't seem to do this.
Yeah.
And, you can't think your way out of a reactive pattern, because those reactions don't live in the thinking mind. They live in the subconscious. believe me, I've tried. I'd wake up in the morning and I tell myself, I'm going to stay calm today no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Lo and behold, when I walk into my daughter's bedroom and see the clothes scattered around like confetti again, I'd snap before I even knew what was happening. Now,
Yep.
obviously, that wasn't intentional. I didn't wake up and say, I'm going to snap at my daughter today. That was my subconscious replaying the old pattern that I learned as a child, which was don't be messy. Got to keep your room clean. And this is where hypnotherapy becomes so incredibly powerful because when you're in this relaxed, focused state, we
Mm-hmm.
get direct access to the subconscious where the patterns actually live. So we can finally update it.
Interesting. And it's something to think about. We were talking a little bit about this before we pressed record, but when that amygdala in your brain is fired up, that fear and anger network, you're not going to be consciously looking into your subconscious and what you can fix. It's not going to happen. So the only way we can fix anything and actually reroute and reroute those neurotransmitters in our brain is through that. That's so interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So what are the
Yeah.
things that they just give us? And I know we're going to kind of talk through this, just a few like strategies when you first become aware. Give me one thing that you can do just with that meditation state. I obviously, I really hope people pick up a phone and call you or email, whatever. But what is something that first step after awareness?
Yeah. So when I work with my clients, there's several techniques that I use. One of them being inner child work, and the process happens in 3 layers. Would you like me to go through
I
at
would
a high
love you
level?
to. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So the first one is identification, right? We can't do anything unless we're aware of what we're going to change, right? What we're going to rewire. So it's discovering the emotional inheritance. So we start with the moment that the mom reacted more intently than she meant to. And let's use the example of a mom who snaps every time this is a common one, every time her teenage son rolls his eyes. To the outside world, it's just an eye roll, right?
Mm-hmm.
But internally for her, it feels huge. It's
Yeah.
almost threatening. So in hypnosis, I ask her gentle questions. Where do you feel it in your body? What emotion shows up first? How old does that feeling feel? And her body leads her back to that original imprint. She
Hmm.
might say, wow, this feels like when I was 8 and I got in trouble for speaking up. And suddenly the reaction makes sense, right? The eye roll isn't the problem. Her subconscious is interpreting it as I'm unsafe, I'm not valued, I'm losing control. And once
Hmm.
we know which younger version of her is activated, we know exactly what needs to be rewired. And so that would be the second layer, the reprogramming that old pattern. So while she's in that relaxed state, I guide her to meet that younger version of herself, the one who was punished or ignored or shut down. She meets her younger self. She understands what she needed at that time, and she gives herself the safety, the reassurance, the love that she never received. And then we update the belief with some um, updated patterns, like when someone rolls their eyes, this is the negative, the old pattern. When someone rolls their eyes, I'm being disrespected and I need to protect myself. And then we update that to the new one where my teen is expressing emotion. I can stay grounded and respond, not react. And
Mm-hmm.
her body learns this over time.
That's a
Not
big one,
instantly.
the respond
Yeah.
versus the react. I realize too, going through all this nervous system work, and I know darn well where my nervous system, I've been living in fight or flight my entire life, which is why all my illnesses and my autoimmune diseases that I've acquired that I'm working through. But this is the reason, is because I've lived in that state of mind my entire life. If you and your mom and dad just did the best they could, and I recognize that, although I did grow up in a very abusive household, I definitely recognize the brokenness in my parents, because I can look at their parents and see how they were also abused and know that they're just in the exact same situation that I am now in. And then what we have to remember too is that you obviously only know what you know, right? And it's
Mm.
always the person that starts to question things that usually starts to feel more grief, because this, my friends, is a very touchy topic. This is something that really can rock your foundation of your worth, of everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when you know better, you do better.
It's very true. Yeah.
And like I said, when you take the shame out of it, um, and everybody is human. We're all human. It's just when we're doing better, just one step at a time. You don't have to feel like you're a bad parent, because there are, like I mentioned, there is no perfect parents. We're all doing the best that we can with what we have.
I'm kind of in a unique situation right now because, well, I can't say I'm in a unique situation. I'm sure there's a lot of people in this world that have had conflicts with their parents and conflicts also with their children. So you can identify, okay, so right now I'm the kid in this relationship, and right now I'm the parent in this. So if anything, it gives you more of a, I don't know, a perspective of both sides, which is helpful in my opinion. If you're not able to step back out of your emotion and try to understand, like you just explained about a parent understanding their teenager's struggles, if you struggle to do that, your nervous system is going to take a hit, because the simple act of that awareness with it. But if the unique situation that I'm in, it allows me to be like, okay, because I can look at these different perspectives, I can try to come at it for my own heart and soul and understanding. So the relationship that I have with my child gives me the perspective of what my mother's gone through, and what, or anybody, my dad died, but that situation too, right? And then being in the relationship with my mother allows me to understand what my son feels, right? So I think that every generation, that, in my opinion, you're the expert in this, I'm the client at this point, that if that, to me, that was my step one, to me, because I made a decision that no longer in life am I only going to look at, and I actually started this years ago, and I'm so glad I did, because it has opened up my eyes to so many things on every level, politics, religion, everything. But when you can understand why people treat you the way they do, then you can heal. What is your thoughts on that? Or what are your thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, that the understanding and the forgiveness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Because you can sit there and beat yourself up, or your parents, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you're also, when you do that, you're giving away, you can sit there and blame your parents, but what is that really doing?
Exactly. Take personal responsibility.
Yeah, when you take personal responsibility for your actions and for the way that you're behaving and thinking.
Mm-hmm. You see, I wrote about this in my book, because personal responsibility, and I know I did get some backlash on this. I'm one of those people that if you had something horrible happen to you, sexual assault, got beat, anything terrible, that's awful. But you still have to respond accordingly, because if you don't respond accordingly, it's only going to get worse for you. The way that you respond with a comeback is by responding so that it helps you understand what you need to do in your next steps. And I think that's the roadblock that so many people get in, because they're so stuck on how they should have been treated. They're so stuck on they're wronged and it's whatever, and just the pointing of fingers. They don't want to point back to the person that can actually help them, and that's yourself.
Yeah. And when you do the blame game, you're giving your power away.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In every situation, there's always a way that you can go, what's my part in that? And if you feel you don't have a part to play in that, guess what? You may be the problem. So breaking down those generational struggles now, let's just talk a little bit about that generation thing. And then how do you even talk to your parents about this, especially those parents and grandparents from a certain generation that don't talk about feelings? Because this is my thing with my family, is nobody wants to talk. Nobody wants to communicate. They just want it to magically go away, and that's it. How do you start the conversation so people are listening and aware?
I love this question because it goes straight to the heart of the work that I do. And again, before I dive in, I actually put together this free resource and it's on my website and it's called 10 Patterns That May Be Affecting Your Child. And it walks you through how these patterns made sense, why they're showing up in your parenting, how they're affecting your child without you even realizing it, and simple shifts that you can start to do to
Mhm.
practice.
I'm gonna get that, and I hope our listeners do too. Thank you
Yeah, so
very
I mean,
much.
if anything that I say resonates, that guide will give you an even deeper understanding. So,
Um,
yeah.
I just want to say how amazing you are to our listeners. Your heart in this and your
Mm.
expertise in this are incredible. You've helped me. I haven't known you that long, but you've helped me in the times that we've talked. And I really want to stress that it's so important that people, when you're in the situation, to understand you don't have to stay here. There's simple, not easy, simple and easy are different. There are simple things you can do that will give you the freedom, because when you break from that hurt and that pain and that anger kills. Anger is anger is a root of cancer. Even like anger will eat you alive. So once you get that aha moment of what you can do, and if everybody else doesn't want to do it, okay, that's fine. Maybe it's not the time. Hopefully it one day will be, but the inner work that you do first sets that foundation. And I don't understand how this works. And actually, this just popped in my head. And I would love, because I know this is your world, for you to tell me that ripple effect. We've talked about that where when the child, there's always in generations, there'll be finally that one person that breaks the cycle. And that one person is always the one that all the family members at first are angry at and upset about. But that one person stands their ground. Foundationally, how does that person carry on past that and sit with themselves to go, okay, I know this is truth. How can I now convince, I don't know, lack of better words, everybody else that this is good? And how can I live with it if they're not on board?
Mm. I think a lot of it too is stress. When you're bringing stress into relationships, we're not acting from we're from our what was I thinking of what we were talking about earlier from the
Subconscious.
um
It's okay. Brain farts are fun on podcasts
yeah,
because I have them
we
all
could
the
just
time.
cut that out.
Just keep talking.
So I would say now the generational patterns that I see most often are because moms are coming to me and saying, I love my kids so much. And they're saying, why am I acting like this? And they're not acting from their adult version of themselves. They're reacting from that part of them that was still trying to survive their own childhood.
That's right.
So there's four common patterns that I see. And the first one is the emotional suppression. So many moms grew up hearing, "Oh, you're fine. Stop crying. Don't be dramatic." And they learned that emotions were unsafe or inconvenient, right?
That's exactly what I did. Tough it up. That's what we
Yeah.
were raised, right? Oh,
Exactly. So
whatever.
we're
You're not
repeating the
bleeding. It's
pattern.
fine. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So now when a child has big feelings,
Yep.
they freeze, the moms are freeze, they shut down or they dismiss it. Not
Mm-hmm.
because they don't care about their kids, because they never learned how to hold space for emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And that impact, the kids start hiding their feelings or they become anxious people pleasers because they don't want to overwhelm you. They love you.
Mm-hmm.
Another one that I see is perfectionism and control. These moms, they grew up believing that they had to be good, they had to be agreeable, they had to be high achieving
Mm-hmm.
to feel loved. So they pushed themselves and their kids towards perfection. And these kids, they either desperately try to get it right or they rebel because the pressure is just too much. They just give up, like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm no good. And so they start having these negative thoughts and beliefs about themselves. Um, Guilt tripping, that's a big one.
Mm-hmm.
That works, right? That works in the moment. But
100%.
but there's ramifications for that. If you were controlled by or motivated growing up. Like the big one is, after all I've done for you, you can't even take out the garbage. It's easy to repeat, right?
Yep.
Without meaning to. We get compliance.
But it's so hard because I admit I did that. We've all done it, every human being.
Mhm.
So if any child's listening to this and saying, see, hey, guess what, buddy, you're going to do it too. Or guess what, buddy, friend, you're going to do it too. And anybody that's like, and anyone that's had grown up kids are like, oh, yeah, yeah. Because this
You
is a
can see it.
generational thing. Like we can't have so much pressure on like my grandpa's generation and even my mom's. We can't sit back and be like, how dare you have done that? This was what they had happen. This is what they were taught. These are their roots. And you can't just, unless you have a different perspective, you're never going to just change those roots because your brain's goal or your brain's main purpose, the reason that your brain thinks it exists is for safety. And safety to your brain is not what's good for it. Safety is what you know. So beating somebody up for this makes the person that's doing the beating just as bad because we need to understand the reason our grandparents, the reason our parents are doing this. And when you understand that out of love, not out of, I told you, it's out of love, then you have so much more control and the possibility for healing the family unit finally comes to play. But those finger pointing for this is a real problem. Tell me number 4, because now I'm excited.
Yeah, before I go into number 4, I just wanted to share a personal story real quick. Before my healing, and I didn't heal, I didn't find answers or resources until my children were teenagers. So unfortunately, which is why I'm strongly an advocate for making these changes for these moms, these young moms, because when the teenagers years hit, they're like I said, they pull away, they hide out in their rooms, and they don't come
Yeah.
to you. So when I finally came to that understanding and I got the help that I needed, my daughter, she just like you could just see that relax, like, oh, mom, you're finally listening to me, like that emotional support that she needed all those years growing up. And then you could just see her body just relax and release into it. And we have just my kids and I just have a beautiful relationship. They're in their 20s and she's in her 30s now. But yeah, it's just
I have another little story, and it actually isn't a personal story, but I had a certain old friend pop into mind. Now, unfortunately, I started doing my healing once my kids were adults. So, all those parents out there, if this is where you're at too, it's never too late. Even teenagers, adults, whatever stage in life, it's never too late to do this. But I also want to touch a little bit on because I can guarantee there are some listeners that are like, but what happens if the problem I get that's partly the parent, they have a problematic child? Now, I understand there's always the root, but I've also witnessed, and I'm thinking of a friend that was, in my opinion, one of the most incredible mothers on planet Earth was that mom that did everything, didn't blow up, didn't anything. And their kids put her through the ringer. And she was the one that was trying to do the calm, the breath, she was doing all the right things. And since I've been doing this work, I'm like, why did that happen then? So there is a bit of a wild card that, hey, there still are problemed children too. And, maybe this is when we get help. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, these patterns are very, very tricky. Like they don't come out they're like almost invisible. And unless I talk to this woman, I wouldn't know. There could be something that she's doing where she is not.
Well, this was years ago. This was like 10 years ago. It was just the person popped in my head, but go on.
Yeah, I'm just saying there's things that we do without even realizing it, even to the extent of putting ourselves last. We're showing our kids that like taking care of ourselves isn't important. Like, again, the people pleaser. And
That was me.
so if she's giving them everything and she's not taking care of herself, they're seeing her as being not important, or her needs aren't important. So I
Mhm.
don't, you know what I mean? There's so many different patterns that show up that change the relationships. So unless I sat down with her and really talked about it, we would,
No, but do you see patterns? This was just a general thing. I wasn't like specific to her, but I know this situation must happen to a lot of people when they're looking at it. I just don't want these parents to think that they're all wrong, because as doing
yeah,
this nervous system work, it's the worst thing you can do to sit back and go, I'm a screw up, I'm a failure, I did these things. And that's unfortunately what I personally feel, what a lot of psychologies and the new, I don't want to insult people, but there's a lot of personal responsibility that's not taken these days. And there's a lot of victimhood mentality going on in this world. Bottom
mhm.
line, there just is. So if that's the scenario, what's the best way to manage that between the two? Like, that it's not always going to just be a parent. There are problem kids, but no person is born flawless. Some people are born with certain personality traits, they are, and they're just a little bit more difficult. I have two children born in the same house, same parents, same, complete polar opposites, different children, everything was the same. So you can't sit back and say it's only the parenting, because if it was only the parenting, so it is something to do with the mentality of the child too. So I guess where I'm kind of leading with that is, I just want to encourage the parents to understand that it may not just be their screw up as a parent, because we're all screw ups as parents. Maybe
Mhm.
it's a different approach they need to take.
It's a different approach. And like you said, every child is different. Their needs are different. The love language, right, is different. There's so many different levels that make up a person and their needs. And again, I'm not blaming the moms at all, because it's a relational thing. And again, it just goes back to what the child needs. And if it, or the way that my mom talks to me, the tone, you know it's, and I just want to say that I'm not trying to blame the moms. I'm just saying it's more of a awareness thing of like really finding out how my child learns, what they
Yeah.
really need in terms of love, because my daughter and son are totally different. My daughter came out of the womb with big emotions. I mean, and my son is very, like, very casual, very chill. And I didn't know how to parent her. I mean, I parent her the best way I knew how, but I wasn't, she was feeling like, oh, something is wrong with me, because, I have these big emotions, and I'm not, I didn't know how to help her with those emotions. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So I guess that's what I'm trying to get back to, like when the child has certain needs, like if they're displaying, like if they're getting angry, right? Why are they getting angry?
Mhm.
Maybe they need an outlet. Maybe they need to, whatever, go to
We
like
didn't have that,
therapy
right?
classes or
So many
something,
people didn't
or
have that.
didn't have what?
They didn't have that ability to do that, right? Your generation, my generation, and
Oh,
that
no,
that sounds
no.
like the root. Yeah.
Mm-mm, mm-mm. But it's just discovering, it's just getting curious about your children, and just having an open mind, and obviously just loving them through it. And
Yeah. Yeah.
there's no
So
bad kid, there's no bad mom, there's no bad dad. We're all doing the best that we can.
that's an important thing to remember. Every single human being is just doing the best that they can. All
Hmm.
right, number 4. Do we forget number 4?
Oh, I think that was
Was that
two.
number 4? Oh, okay. The one thing we didn't, the ripple effect. Why does that work?
Mm,
When we were talking about that ripple effect, how if one person starts to make a change, how it can ripple to the rest of the family. Please tell me, you must have seen this so many times happen, and so many times families unite and come together. Please explain that to me, and how you see that and why you see that when it does happen, the beauty in it. What was the foundation?
I love this question because again, it's a part of the work that makes me feel like it's magic, really. Like it's even though the result is of deep, consistent hard work paying off.
Mm-hmm.
When a mom starts breaking these generational patterns, it doesn't look dramatic at first. It's quiet, it's subtle, and it shows up in these tiny moments that feel small from the outside, but life-changing on the inside.
Yes.
And let me tell you what I see. The first shift is almost always internal. Like the moms will come to sessions and say something like, something happened this week that would have sent me spiraling. And I just didn't go there, or they'll say, I
Mm-hmm.
felt that old pattern starting and I can actually choose differently now.
Mm-hmm.
There's a softness that comes over them, where they realize for maybe the first time that I'm not trapped anymore,
Yeah.
that there's possibilities, there's hope. And her body feels different. She's calmer, she's more grounded. She stops feeling like she's, hijacked by her feelings, her
Yeah.
reactions rather. She's sleeping better, she breathes deeper. And there's that sense of hope that she hasn't felt in years. And then compassion starts to grow. Instead of I'm the worst mother ever, she's learning. She's saying that, I'm trying, I'm human.
Mm-hmm.
She's talking about herself in a different, more positive way. And she's treating herself the way that she wants to treat her kids with more gentleness and instead of judgment.
Mm-hmm. I
And
love it.
yeah, and then she just starts to trust herself again. And I love that part. She's not second guessing herself or fearing that she's messing them up, you know?
I love it. And then it gets passed down. It just, that's how the new, and be
Yeah,
that person, do the work. If you're struggling with your kids or your adult kids, it's not going to just go away with time. You got it. Each individual person needs to do the work and then
yeah,
come back together. And the only way that's ever going to happen is that each person does the work, wakes up to the truth, and communicates and works with
exactly.
someone like you.
Yeah. Yeah, your home will feel different, not perfect. It'll feel safer, more
Yeah.
safe. There'll be less yelling, more repair.
Mm-hmm.
The kids will be opening up instead of shutting down. They'll want to be around you, share
Yep.
their stories.
So true. Tracy, before we pressed record on this episode, I told you that we're not going to go longer than what, and we did. But you know what? I kept it going because that was really great. Thank you so much for that. And I know that there's some listeners that this is really going to hit home for. So why don't you tell people how they can get a hold of you, how you can help them, and if you have any promos or anything coming up.
Oh, sure. Yes. Well, that free guide is available on my website, and that is Interstate, Inner, Interstate Hypnotherapy, and it's on my resource tab. So that's available for you free. And if you're listening right now and you're thinking, I want to show up like that, I don't know how, or you feel like you're alone in this, I actually created a 4-week workshop titled, what did I call it? From Frazzled to Flourishing.
Ooh, I like that.
And yeah, and it opens this fall, and it's designed to take you from simple awareness into real embodied change. And then each week we cover like repattern, regulate, reframe, and reparent.
I like it.
And yeah, it's just a gentle sequence just to help
Nice.
you to understand what's running the show, how to calm your nervous system,
Yeah.
how to soften that inner critic, and then also reparenting, right? Giving yourself, the parent that you never had when you were young.
It's so important. And if you are listening to this while you're driving, all of Tracy's information and how you can reach her are going to be in the show notes. You have my contact info. For some reason you can't find it, please reach out to me and I would be happy to point you in the direction of Interstate Hypnotherapy, because man, Tracy, you perform amazing work. But thank you so much for your time and your wisdom today. You've given us a lot to ponder and a lot of hope. And I think the hope is the big part, not just about what has been handed down to us, but the most important part now, how we can move forward and the choice to move forward, because it is a choice. And to our listeners, if you are thinking about the patterns that you walked in with, or you might be walking in currently, know that the transformation is possible. The family coming together is possible, but it takes work from everyone. And that even if it is something that you never thought was possible, oh, my friend, it so is. I'm Nicole McLeod, and I'm with the Comeback Season. Until next time, I want to encourage you to lean into your story, heal those patterns, and build a legacy that you're proud of, because it's so possible. Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us on the Comeback Season. Please remember, the conversations we share here are for informational and motivational purposes only. We are not licensed medical professionals, and this podcast is not intended to diagnose, treat, or replace guidance from your doctor or your healthcare provider. Always consult your healthcare team before making changes to your nutrition, your fitness, or your mental health routines. Your health and well-being comes first, and we want you to move forward safely with the right support for your journey.